I will turn the time over to Kim for roll call. Danielle, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I couldn't hear Kim's microphone a moment ago, but I am here.
All right.
I don't know if there's any way to talk.
Thanks.
John Enlow is here, same way. I could hear you, John, but I can't hear Tim.
Okay, or Jennifer, I guess, in this case. Jen?
Nick, can't hear anybody.
Michael Widmer,
Present.
Bill Hauk,
Here.
Casey Mincer, John Enlow,
Here,
John
Here.
John Flansburgh,
Here.
Mylene,
Here.
Michael Drinkwater,
Here.
Chris Melton,
here.
Eric Crump,
Here.
Cara Steelan, David Kelly, Thomas Payette, Jennifer Carr, Cindy Turchek, Ron Penrose. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. All right, this is time for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have none.
All right, seeing none, nothing in the online, then we'll move forward with our agenda items. Do I have, we have our agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Drinkwater.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hauk. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of the minutes from the June 5th Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any comments, or do I have a motion?
Widmer moves to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Widmer to motion for approval. Do I have a second? Steelan second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll now have our item number 5, action report and discussion regarding the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency draft 2024-2044 Washoe County Commission consensus forecast and recommendation to the Western Region Water Commission for determination. Kim, Jeremy going to kick this off? How do you guys want to tag team this one?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Members of the Commission, Director Smith from the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency is here to present the consensus forecast, and I will follow up with the rest of the analysis.
Thank you.
Director
Good
Smith.
afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Smith for the record. I'm glad to be back here. Every 2 years, we do this check to make sure that the amount of population that we're forecasting for Washoe County can be served with our identified sustainable water resources. And so my side of this is to talk about that population forecast, the consensus forecast that we do every 2 years. So here we go. So number one, what is a consensus forecast? Why do we call it that? And really, it's a pooling of resources. It's bringing together more than one source, independent source, for a projection of the future, really to remove bias. And you're going to see how this current year kind of does that. But so that's important. So we don't want to be going down a path that's too specific in the wrong direction. But secondly, it's a consensus among the community in terms of using this information in the context of long-range planning. So how do we collectively feel that the future of our region is going to progress in terms of population? So this process is very collaborative. We work with jurisdictional staff at our affected entities. We come to this body, we come to the Western Regional Water Commission, and ultimately take it to the Regional Planning Commission for adoption. That's planned to happen in September if everything goes good here starting today. In terms of the sources that we use to create as forecast, again, they're independent sources. 2 of them are local, 2 of them are nationwide sources. So we've got the Nevada State Demographer who does a projection, about 20-year projection. He ends at 2042, so we end up extrapolating the last 2 years of the demographer's forecast, but generally there. Sean Stoddard, statistician at Tumwhat, provides a great, very accurate projection. So over the years, it's been very accurate for Washoe County as well. And then we have our 2 national sources, Woods and Pool, as well as S&P Global, which used to be called IHS Market. So they just keep changing the name, but it's actually the same people doing the forecast because I communicated with them this year. So those are our sources, and that's been typical for the past, since we took over the forecast in 2014. And here are the lines. I think this is also an attachment in your packet. Here's sort of a just slightly different representation, but the same lines. And that dashed line represents the draft population forecast, a total of 93,696 additional population is contemplated, starting from the 2023 Governor's Certified Estimate, which is the last one that's available. It's July 1, 2023, of 508,759 out to just over 600,000 in year 2044. So that is currently the draft, and those are the four sources. And I think you can see there's one source that maybe has a bias, right? That darker line at the bottom, that's the S&P Global line. And in fact, I mean, the others really show good agreement, especially in the first 5 years, which is pretty typical for this process. But then I was kind of alarmed at that lower line, so I ended up calling this guy Carl, who works for S&P back in Massachusetts, and we talked through it, and that in fact was, I input the numbers correctly, and that is their forecast. So it's just a little bit more pessimistic than the others, and that it historically has been. But as you can see, by averaging the four sources together, we get that dashed line in the middle, and that really does seem to eliminate that bias of using just one particular forecast. So it's a safer bet. And the reason there's two dashed lines is that what we end up doing is, because we're really averaging these four sources, they all have different start points. You end up with a 2024 point that we need to ground that somewhere in the record. And so you can kind of see on this next slide, that black series is the Governor's Certified Estimate series, year over year, that gets produced. And so what we've done is taken the average, which would have been slightly lower at 2024, and just tacked it onto the end of that last 508 number that I mentioned that the certified estimate was, so that we have that starting point, and that's pretty typical. Otherwise, it's just sort of floating in space. So that, in fact, is this is a cool graph because this shows all of the consensus forecasts that have been done back to 2003 when it started, and I think what you can see is that generally they're all kind of like fireworks in that zone where the black line matches pretty good. There was a couple years when we were really booming in the mid-2000s, or really it was 2008 and 2010 forecasts. There was a bit of a lag, but you can kind of see the black line popping up early in the record there, shooting those forecasts off into the stratosphere. Obviously, we didn't actually realize that. But interestingly, the black line is popping up in recent memory. And this is an interesting phenomenon where, number one, we've had 3 state demographers during that period of time that all do it just slightly differently, even though it's an adopted method. Everyone has their little color there. But if you look at 2020, the certified estimate was well below the decennial census number by on the order of, I think, is around 12,000 people. And so I think what we're seeing in that black line popping up is that certified estimate process reacting to where the census number is and trying to better align with that. So there you have it. We also have a preliminary draft employment forecast, looking to add around 45,000 jobs. This is only Washoe County, so it does not include like the Tri-Center out to the east. And then the reason there is that line at the bottom again is that there is this sort of fundamental difference in how jobs are tracked. There's a total job number, which if you go to the feds would be the Bureau of Economic Analysis. They would report that number based on activity by the IRS, as I understand it. And it's a total job number, which is quite a bit higher than what you get from, say, QCEW, the Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages, or from DETR. They put that data up on the website. That's covered employment, and so that ensures that there's unemployment insurance being paid. So your sole proprietors, realtors, there's many different jobs that aren't covered, and so that difference is right there. And we use that BEA to Bureau of Labor Statistics relationship to factor the bottom line up into the top universe there, because we're really trying to achieve an understanding of total jobs, because this data does feed several efforts, but importantly, the RTC's transportation demand model, which is really about origins and destinations. So making sure we have all the job types is very important. Okay, in addition, there's tons of data and information about how we're growing, land use change, unit growth by different geographic regions happening at our Truckee Meadows Annual Report website. There's that site there, and you could go check any of that. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dr. Smith? I mean, obviously, the benefit of this is we're looking at it every 2 years.
Exactly.
So there's chances of us going too far off the rails, too far in the future is not likely, and that's the reason for that. And then the other part of this is making sure we have the water resources we're going to need for the timing based on the population, and it appears that we're in good shape that way. So that's just the kind of the check that we go through. But it all gets incorporated into our water management plan for the region, and those conclusions are made. So appreciate the work on this population side that goes and feeds into the model.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'll hand it off to Kim Rigdon, who will take you through the water side.
Okay, members of the commission, thank you very much. Kim Rigdon for the record. I have to point out a clerical error really quickly before we begin, because the consensus population forecast that Jeremy has provided is 602,455, not 616,041. And the reason for the error is we transposed Hamwa's population projection rather than the consensus forecast. But the calculations are correct, so if you could make those adjustments on your staff report and keep them in mind when we're going through the presentation. So that 2044 consensus forecast population should reflect 602,455 persons.
I thought you were going to explain your optimism.
I was like, oh, as Jeremy was moving forward, I realized, yeah, we put the wrong number up there, so my apologies for that. So moving forward, what we do as soon as Jeremy sends us the consensus forecast, the draft consensus forecast population, we work with Sean Stoddard over at Hamwa again and use his expertise to project the Washoe County water use for that year for 2044. And Sean's method is very complex and very granular, so I'm going to do my best to give you a high-level overview. But essentially what this water use projection is looking at the last 5 years of water demand records at Hamwa, and then dividing that by their service population, and then applying that across the Washoe County population. And so that resulted in 116,442 acre-feet annually. I'm not sure where to point this. And then what we do, staff, we revisit the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. And in that plan, there is Table 2-1 that is estimated sustainable water resources. And those are developed and potentially available across the basins that you see in that list and figure above. And that total is 192,988 acre-feet annually, and that includes the TROA yield, Truckee River Operating Agreement yield, and the groundwater basins that are highlighted in that graph. We also did some initial analysis to look at what are the developed and potentially available water resources with no additional water importation to the region, to see what those resources would support. And with the TROA yield, the developed groundwater basins, and of course the Fish Springs importation project, that number is 143,800 acre-feet annually, and you can see those basins, those developed basins listed in the table and on the graph. And then we do a comparison with the right numbers. Like I said, that typo in the second line there, it doesn't impact the calculations. It's there for reference. However, what we do is we look at the 192 to 988 acre-feet annually. We subtract the projected water demand for 2044. Seems to be another typo there. And we get a balance. And the balance shows us that with the full developed and potentially available water resources, with all the basins available, we surpass and definitely have more than what's sufficient to meet the 2044 consensus forecast population demands. We also are well below the developed and potentially available with no water importation projects of the 143,800. So with that, staff recommends that the WRWC make a determination that the water resources outlined in the Regional Water Management Plan are sufficient to support the 2044 consensus forecast population. And with that, Chairman, I'll turn the time over to you.
All right. Any questions from the commission here or online?
I have one, sir.
Yes.
Just for clarity, is the Washoe County consensus population forecast, does that include, Incline Village or the outlying areas?
Jeremy Smith, for the record, yes, it does. It's the entire county population.
And their water demand also folded into these calculations? I'm just saying, are we comparing apples and apples? And I realize Incline Village as a percentage of Washoe County is very small, I get that, but I'm just wondering if we've corrected.
My understanding from the methods that Sean's employed is that, yes, it considers the entirety of Washoe County demand.
And I would just make one other observation. We're basically saying that in 20 years, in 2044, we're going to be, we project to use only about 60% of our available water resources. So that's the kind of magnitude we're talking about here is it's a 60% would be under use and 40% would still be not used. All right. Seeing no other questions, do we have a motion? Someone could make a motion to maybe approve the report or something to that effect.
With edits.
Don't everybody jump in at once, it's okay.
I'll make a motion.
All right, so we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the WRWC that we recommend a determination that the draft 2044 consensus forecast is less than the estimated population that can be supported by the sustainable water resources set forth in the RWMP, and the forecasted population can be supported by such water resources.
Great, we have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Mincer, and a second from Commissioner Crump. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Hearing none, motion carries. All right, our next item, agenda item number 6, is a program manager's report. So we will turn time over to Kim.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the Commission, Kim Brington for the record. Items 6A and 6B are included in your board packet for your review. There are standard quarterly revenue and expense report, as well as our project status update for projects that are supported by the Regional Water Management Fund. Not much has changed on the projects as far as reporting what has been completed in the notes, but we did have quite a few invoices come in, and you'll see a lot of those balances zeroed out and have, for fiscal year 24, much less available. We did not include fiscal year 25. We amended many of these to, they'll have budget in fiscal year 25. We'll present that at the next meeting for the board. We wanted to clear out fiscal year 24 and have you be able to review an end-of-the-year report. So this report was amended slightly late yesterday, so we hope that everybody got the amended copy. The enhanced source control, the UNR, we got a report from UNR this morning that they are finalizing their first quarter monitoring report. And they are looking at proposing some revisions to reduce monitoring based on their observations that were made. And so we're looking forward to getting that report and getting it out for review. The Cold Springs Water Balance, Stantec is working on the development of the surface and groundwater model. They expect that the model construction and calibration that is planned will be complete in September. And they'll bring that and collaborate more closely with the Water Planning Commission members and the team to move forward with looking at the various scenarios to put into the model for the effluent and regional water balance. And on item 6B, You'll notice that the only highlight that I have really is that there ended up being a negative balance on our stormwater permit coordinating committee. We had a snafu with some past due invoices from a couple of years ago that got lost in the shuffle during staff turnover, both at the city of Reno and here at Washoe County with my taking over that position during that time. So we wanted to get those invoices paid under this fiscal year, get that off the table, and then next fiscal year it'll start over again with the 262,500. But that was a little over budget this year because of that. And other than that, the financials look really good. We'll be having our audit done this August and September. And we were well below our budgeted revenues with our expenditures, so we still have our consistent average of about $2 million in the bank. And we'll be looking forward to obligating that during our next priority setting in October. So if you have any questions, I'll turn it back over to the board.
Anyone have any questions for Kim? Seeing none. We don't have to take action on this one. It's not set up for action, so we'll go to item number 7. Discussion and possible direction to staff on the Western Region Water Commission's request for the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission to recommend options and evaluate benefits for a regional approach to collaborative management and planning of wastewater utilities and effluent disposal. So Commissioner Hill at Western Region Water Commission had made a request. As all of you know, we are the technical advisory committee, if you will, to the Western Region Water Commission, and they've made a request for us to look into any benefits, options, benefits for a regional approach to our wastewater side. So wanted to bring this one forward to the commission to introduce it, realizing that this topic is going to be complex and looking at what that might mean. I think that I would open it up for any discussion or questions that we might have here or things that we would see to maybe bring to a discussion. But I think it's going to take a larger discussion, and so would recommend that we bring this back maybe in a workshop format to kind of talk about what those items might be that would be included in this. Again, this would be looking at a way for us to recommend these options and benefits. Likely is going to include us putting some sort of scope of work together and having a consultant involved to make a recommendation back to the Western Region Water Commission. So again, it was just Commissioner Hill's desire and from the Western Region Water Commission approval that we would look at this and make those recommendations back to them. So Kim, is there anything that I missed in that dialogue, if you will?
No, I think you nailed it. We're just looking for feedback on, get initial thoughts and comments, and then direction to staff on whether that September date works for a workshop so that we can find a venue to be able to do that. And then also how the board would envision us facilitating that workshop.
So having the topic be wastewater utilities and effluent management, I mean, obviously there are not unlike the water purveyors at one point in time in this region. We had Truckee Meadows Water Authority, we had Washoe County Water Resources, we had several other smaller, we have similarly with fewer players, but all with a fairly large group and just diverse, right? Every sewer shed ending in a treatment plant has a slightly different way of handling things just because of the way water works in our region. So as I look at this, we have, the large players are going to be Washoe County, Reno, Sparks, and Sun Valley GID, because they've got their operations as well. And so, and possibly others. So it would be something that we'd be looking at in that regard. So any thoughts or discussion from the group on bringing this back as a workshop and what type of topics or things that we would want to consider? Michael, Commissioner Drinkwater.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Concur with everything you said. I would like to add a couple thoughts. It clearly says wastewater, but this conversation goes nowhere unless Tom was in the room. So it necessarily is going to include the water utility, particularly because of the return flow requirements for Tom Wharf and other areas, but that's one of the big pieces. And as you alluded to, unlike the Safe Drinking Water Act, which has standards for all drinking water, every sewer shed is different. The Reno Stead discharge permit is very different from the Tom Wharf permit, very different from Stum Wharf, so they're not apples and apples. So that being said, I think there is fruit to bear from a more collaborative approach. Are we envisioning, and I apologize, I have not watched the WRWC meeting and what Commissioner Hill asked for, or directed us to do, rather. Is it from collaboration all the way up to a regionalized, consolidated utility and everything in between? Because that's a fairly heavy lift. And I'm not sure what the bookends are on this project.
There were no real bookends given. So I really think it's looking at the whole thing. And I think if I were to reframe this, not to put words in anybody's mouth, absolutely not. But if I was to reframe this, I'd say, okay, what if we all took a customer approach, and from the customer's point of view, what does this mean to them? I suppose that might get us one set of answers, right? So it'd be something to look at. We, of course, are very much involved, and we can, I can at least, not speaking for anyone else, I can certainly see a lot of the complications and things that we might want to explore, and things that would make it difficult. And yet, at the same time, I think we can look at it from the customer point of view and say, okay, what does the customer care about, and what is important to them? What is important? Obviously, we all have our own regulations that we follow, and how do we best serve the public, which includes how we meet our permit requirements and all those things. And as far as the discussion on Tumwa, absolutely Tumwa needs to be involved, because let's face it, a lot of our effluent disposal and stuff that we do now, not just to the balancing of the river resources that we need to have, but also the benefits that reuse gives for reducing the amount of potable water needs that we have in the region. And how that benefits us, and how we can use only 60% of the water in 20 years as opposed to more. So I think there's recognizing those benefits and the collaboration and the work that we all already collaborate on. And maybe part of it is also highlighting the collaborations we have in place, because we have a lot of collaborations that we currently are doing.
So if we go all the way up to consolidated utility, that means we're necessarily bringing the Finex folks to the table, which I don't think they know that yet, that we're going to be knocking on their door.
And I don't think that we're supposed to bring them a package and say, here's how we do it. I think this is going to be, here are the things that need to be considered and the scope of work that needs to happen. And then we need to give them that opportunity then to see going forward, maybe with some sort of a study that analyzes that and see what the benefits would be.
So you're looking for a workshop a month hence where we would build the framework of this scope of work?
Yeah, and I would say at our next, we're going to be talking about future meetings coming up, so I guess we would talk about when that would best fit in. So, but that's, and to your point, how we've been directed, so I think we need to come in, but I wasn't expecting that we would have all the answers today.
Oh, no.
So.
So.
Other thoughts, discussion?
Can I make a comment?
Commissioner Hauk, and then Commissioner Minzer.
But I wonder, could this regional approach include stormwater discussion?
I think that we put that as a discussion point on there. I did actually ask that with Commissioner Hill, and her concern was that stormwater would add another layer of complexion to it, but it doesn't mean that from the technical advisory committee side that we serve, that we don't look at what those impacts are, and there might be a reason for us to also include stormwater. Commissioner Minzer.
I just wanted to offer up Tom Wharf. Should we be looking at a location to host a workshop? It might be more conducive than a particular set of chambers, but So should we want to be doing that anywhere, we can certainly utilize the training room. And I know it'll be a public meeting since we'll have a quorum, but we can easily accommodate that. So, but we'd be happy to host the collaborative effort.
All right, we can discuss location as well when we get to the point of setting the meeting. So I'm not hearing anybody say that we should just tell them this is a terrible idea.
To your point, I think, we owe the customers of the valley
Yes.
the effort, to give it our best effort and take a look, and if it doesn't pencil, or whatever. But we need to take the look as directed and come back with, here are the benefits, here are some potential costs, and what do you want to do? Here's what we recommend, what do you want to do?
All right. Well, this is set up for possible action. Timing for our next meeting, Kim, I know we're gonna discuss that, but for this, well, we'll just leave it as a future workshop at this point, I think. Does anybody want to offer up a motion for a future agenda, or for this topic and the handling of this topic at a future meeting in a workshop format?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move that we schedule a workshop with members of the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission to address options and evaluation of benefits for a regional approach to collaborative management and planning of wastewater utilities as directed by the Western Regional Water Commission on September 4th at a location to be determined later. September 4th, 2024.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Enlow. I'll second that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Drinkwater with the motion, Commissioner Enlow with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. All right, item number 8, discussion and possible direction to staff regarding agenda items, dates, and locations for future Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meetings. Seems like we have a date. So looking at a September 4th workshop, is there, for that particular item, that would set the date for it. Are there additional agenda items that we want to cover at that date or a future date that we want to discuss here? Any direction to staff for other agenda items? Kim, are there particular agenda items that you have planned coming forward?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then we have one agenda item, which we just approved for September 4th. Does anyone want to clarify that motion, the motion for a future agenda item date and location for the meeting? Commissioner Drinkwater.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will suggest that I think a workshop would be better held in a room other than with the dais, and the training room at Tumworth is well suited for that. I know there are also rooms here. I don't know, since there will be no other business conducted as I'm reading this, it will be only a workshop, not a regular meeting. I'm going to move that we have it at the Tumworth Training Room at 1:30, our regular meeting time on September 4th, 2024.
All right, we have a motion for the next Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting to be held as a workshop with one item, and that be held at the Tumworth Training Room at 1:30 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, Widmer.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Wood, thank you, Commissioner Widmer. And with that, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will go ahead and take the motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9, commission comments. Any commission comments for the good of the order? Quiet group today. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 11, or item 10, staff comments. Kim?
No, we do not have any staff comments. Thank you, Chairman.
No, quiet from the staff as well. All right. With that, Jen, do we have any public comments? Item 11.
I have none.
All right, so then with that, item 12.
Second.
Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Houck, second from Commissioner Drinkwater. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.